Maybe bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your blessings and your watchful eye over our city. Bless us with your wisdom and understanding on all our issues. Guide us in a path that you desire us to represent your will. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis, can I get a roll call, please?
Leon Thompson.
Here.
Perkins.
Here.
Green.
Here.
Ashford.
Here.
Guthrie. Craig Thompson.
Here.
Brandt.
Here.
Cook.
Here. Entertain a motion and a second to adopt the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Lewis, roll call, please.
Ashford.
Yes.
Guthrie. Craig Thompson.
Yes.
Brandt.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Leon Thompson.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Entertain a motion and a second to approve or correct regular session minutes of April 3, 2023, and work session minutes of April 6, 2023.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Ms. Lewis, roll call, please.
Guthrie. Craig Thompson.
Yes.
Brandt.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Leon Thompson.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Ashford.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for business from our audience. If anybody'd like to speak, please limit your time to 3 minutes. Go to the podium, use the microphone. If you have questions for the council, they may answer you tonight. If not, they will get back to you as soon as they have the opportunity to investigate your concerns and give you an answer. Do we have any comments from the audience?
Yes, I am. My name's Carl Girding. I see you got one ordinance here before you with a law firm in, I think it's St. Louis, Missouri. And the last question was asked at the last meeting, I believe, what the cost per hour of this legal firm is. And what is the cost per hour of this legal firm, and what kind of timeline, if you pass this ordinance, is there gonna be?
I think it seemed like it was $270 an hour. Is that correct, JD, or do you?
I'm looking in that agreement right now.
Okay.
I don't have the actual engagement letter. That 260 or so sounds correct. to me.
260 or 70?
Yeah.
I can't remember either. It was around there, but
Uh,
Personally, I don't see how you can vote on an agreement that you don't have no legal with right now, what it's gonna cost, or what kind of timeline is gonna be set. I mean, it could go on for indefinite amount of time, which would cost the city quite a sum of money.
$250 an hour.
250.
250.
Thank you, sir.
Tom Ward, Ward 2. The election's over and the results speak volumes to the community's demand for a change in leadership. Now is not the time for the community to sit back and relax with complacency. Now is when the work begins. It's time for the citizens to organize and participate in their government, to demand transparency and hold the city officials accountable. If not, you could get the arrogance of power that we've already seen, where city leadership denies the citizens the right to vote on important issues such as our trash service. You could have an administration that does not follow its own rules and pursues no written bid contracts. You could get an administration that fails to recognize the appearance of a conflict of interest when conducting city business. You could have your tax dollars loaned out to demolish somebody else's abandoned building. You could have an administration that turns a blind eye to election abnormalities. You could have violations of the Sunshine Law, and your requests for public records could be slow-rolled. You could have MMU board members replaced, not because of their performance, but because the city needs more influence on the MMU board. You could have prearranged selections for appointment to vacancies on the council, while other interested applicants are disregarded. You could have an administration that continues to pursue more money from MMU whether it's called a pilot fee, administration fee, or economic development fee. You could have council members subject to witch hunts for asking questions and wanting public records. You could have a kangaroo court where the judge is an acquaintance of the hearing prosecutor. If the community does not participate and hold these elected officials accountable, you will see more of the same transgressions against you, and you will get the government you deserve. Thanks.
Hello, Crystal Nome, SC 601 East Gordon Street. I just would like to ask the council to please vote again to table or not move forward on the code of conduct or the law firm Pisani situation tonight. I wish you all the best. I would like the new council to decide on these things, not you all. Thank you.
Do we have any other business from the audience? All right, gentlemen, moving on to our committee reports. Property Finance, Budget, and Audit Committee.
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Community Development and Code Committee, Councilman Ashford.
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Public Relations, Public Safety Committee, Councilman Green.
Yeah, and Dan, did you plan on talking about what we met about?
Go ahead and, I'll do my report next and I'll, whatever you didn't cover, I'll try to touch on it or right while you're doing it now, it doesn't matter.
Okay, we met, outside of that with Dan's committee, we met about the golf cart UTV usage on city streets. I have some things to get over to Josh, some minor things for correction on that. But I think we're getting pretty close. Chief Donnell needed some time to maybe implement some of these things, so it might take a couple months before we get something out for a vote, because we need to get the new council members coming in and the mayor kind of up to speed on what we're doing with that. But we think we have a pretty solid ordinance for allowing use of that. And you'll hear more about that when we get a final draft. Talked to Chief Donnell about some different ways of staffing to free up officers' time to actually do patrol on the streets. So we're looking into that. Instead of doing more business office work, they can be actually out protecting the citizens like they need to be. Is that accurate? Or no, I guess that was Starlin Steve. Is that okay? And then we met, Dan and I and Derek Davis and some others, about the High Street and the closure of the crossings. I think that we're back to talking with the state. We came up with an alternative route for that. And right now, it's just something that we kind of saw that as a possibility. I don't want to get into a lot of specifics because it really has to go to the state right now and ask them if it's even feasible. And if they are not agreeable or it's not feasible to do what we're asking, which would keep the trucks out of residential a lot. It's basically coming down the truck routes that we already have, Boyd Street, Commercial Street, and then have to hit a couple little residential streets, but not going through residential High Street and in that route. So we're going to check with the city, or with the state, and see if our route process plan would be even feasible. If it is, then we're going to have to go back to some property owners and talk to them and get some kind of letter of intent that it's agreeable for them and maybe move forward. But that's where we're at with the truck route and the closures for the crossings. Dan, did I miss anything?
No, I think that covers it. Yeah, there's a couple of parties involved in this, private parties that, once we get that, talk to them. I think first, I agree, I think we need to talk to the state and see if it's even, they're even willing to entertain the offer before everybody gets way too far into it. And then we'll work on the owners and get that worked on, so.
Yeah.
I think it's an excellent alternative. I'm afraid if this one, doesn't work, we'll be back to the drawing board and
Agreed,
be
yeah.
looking at stuff again, so, yeah.
Yeah, if the state's not amenable to looking at that with us, then it's pretty much back to what we had.
Yes.
So we're going to keep trying and see what we hear back from the state. So I think that's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Green. Municipal Services and Personnel Committee, Councilman Brandt.
Yep, the only thing I have to announce, other than what we just talked about, and this is a Saline County issue, but I want to go ahead and announce it tonight too, so everybody be aware of it. But Saline County Household Hazardous Waste Drop-Off Facility, which is at the fairgrounds, I believe. It's 265, 23, 24, 245th Road. Will be the 26th of April. And this is for hazardous waste, so this is a really good opportunity to get rid of some of the stuff in your house like I have that I really need to, that you can't just throw away. We're looking at oil-based paints, solvents, pesticides, pet sprays, rat mouse poison, varnish, swimming pool chemicals, drain openers, insecticides, bleach, and glue. No latex paint or gasoline is available for that. Also, if you have any waste oil, the city does take that down at the Municipal Services Office, and you can contact them, and they can line you out on that. So this will be from 8 a.m. till 12 p.m. And the important thing it is by appointment only. So you will have to call for that information, and that number is 660-886-3945 to schedule an appointment. You can't just show up with it. So if you have any questions, you can call that office if you want to schedule that. But that is the fourth Wednesday of the month, which is the 26th of this month. That's all I have unless somebody has some questions.
Thank you, Councilman Brandt. City Administrator, Mr. Kerman.
No report this evening, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. My report for this evening is going to be kind of simple. I'd like to thank the councilmen that are sitting here for what they have done. I appreciate working with you. And for Mr. Allen, Mr. Swisher, and Mr. Utterby, wish you all the luck in the world and congratulations on your wins. Now, move on to our discussions and appropriate follow-up. Certification of the election results. Gentlemen, you've all had it in your packets, the information about the election results from our county clerk's office. Entertain a motion and a second to approve these results.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, Ms. Lewis, to approve the results. Could we get a roll call, please?
Craig Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes?
Cook,
Yes.
Leon Thompson,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Ashford,
Yes.
Guthrie.
All right, gentlemen, we have an event request for the Saline County Barbecue, something we do every year. Chief Donnell, any issues from your department? Sheldon from the fire department, everything clear? Gentlemen, I'd entertain a motion and a second to approve the Saline County Barbecue's request.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, Ms. Lewis, could we get a roll call, please?
Brandt,
Yes?
Cook,
Yes.
Leon Thompson,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Ashford,
Yes.
Guthrie, Craig Thompson.
Yes.
All right, gentlemen, you have one more request for shopping under the sun from the Marshall Cultural Council. And Chief Donnell again, Fire Chief. No concerns from our safety departments. Gentlemen, I'd entertain a motion and a second to approve this event.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, Ms. Lewis, roll call, please.
Cook,
Yes.
Leon Thompson,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Ashford,
Yes.
Guthrie, Craig Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt.
Yes.
All right, gentlemen, move on to our ordinances. Ms. Lewis, we have a second reading of our emergency management. Could I get that by title only, please?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Marshall, Missouri to execute an emergency management agreement between the city of Marshall, Missouri and Saline County, Missouri.
Gentlemen, I'd entertain a motion and a second to approve the second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, Ms. Lewis, roll call, please.
Leon Thompson,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Ashford,
Yes.
Guthrie, Craig Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes?
Cook.
Yes.
Ms. Lewis, could I get ordinance number 2 for second reading as title only, please?
An ordinance granting the Empire District Gas Company doing business as Liberty, its successors and assigns a natural gas franchise and the authority to construct, operate, maintain, and extend a natural gas distribution plant and system, and granting the right to use the streets, alleys, and other public places within the present or future corporate limits of Marshall, Missouri.
Entertain a motion and a second to approve second reading of the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, Ms. Lewis, roll call, please.
Perkins,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Ashford,
Yes.
Guthrie, Craig Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Leon Thompson.
Yes.
Ms. Lewis, could we get ordinance number 3 by title only, please?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Marshall, Missouri to execute an agreement between the city of Marshall and Engelmeyer and Pisani LLC for the provision of legal services.
Gentlemen, this motion has been tabled. You will need a motion. Excuse me, the ordinance has been tabled. You will need a motion and a second to bring the ordinance back.
Okay, I think y'all were waiting on some information from me concerning these next two. I do have a position statement, or a statement from my attorney, and like I said, 2 weeks ago, I was able to meet with him for the first time last week, where we actually officially, he became my attorney, and we got the information all going. He was able to reach out and speak with Mr. Martin concerning these things, and I wanted to read this statement here real quick. I was able to get with my attorney at the end of last week to finalize and start his official representation of me regarding mediation per Paul Martin and my legal counsel, which is something that's been brought up to me throughout last week, that some parties were interested in mediation, so him and Paul talked about that. He said, per Paul Martin and my legal counsel, this is the statement, respective outside legal counsel for both the city of Marshall and Drew Green are open and willing to explore the possibility of mediation to resolve any outstanding issues between the city of Marshall and Councilman Drew Green. We would need the go-ahead from our clients to begin that process. So from what I've understood with conversations I've had this week, parties involved are open to mediation, which would be a good win for the city and the citizens, save money, and able to discuss these things instead of having a costly trial. So it's up to whatever the council wants to do, but the attorneys have spoken, and they are also open to mediation if council wishes to proceed that way, if city council wishes to proceed that way, so. I don't know how this works, Mayor. Is this something to be tabled again, or does it need to be, or does it just drop off if we do nothing?
If nothing is done, it will die on the floor tonight.
I see.
So that's not really the way I read the letter from Paul Martin.
That letter doesn't have anything to do, that was before
And
they
it's,
spoke.
my understanding is, this is a disciplinary hearing. It's not a mediating thing. You can't mediate disciplinary hearings. That is, mediation, if you were an employee, there's a grievance process, and there's some mediation involved there. You're not an employee, you're an elected official. This is a disciplinary hearing. With that, I would move to approve the ordinance.
Yeah, I'm not an attorney, Robert, I don't know. I just know that Paul Martin and my attorney spoke, and they both agreed to mediation, so that's really all I can tell you. Yeah.
So the ordinance that we voted on was to have a hearing, though, correct? Josh?
Yes, yeah, the prior, I believe it was a resolution that was voted upon, was to move forward with
the
the hearing process.
disciplinary hearing. So there's a legal obligation now to have a disciplinary hearing by the resolution that we've passed.
Unless something were to change with that, yeah, the resolution called for a hearing, and I believe that there was it wasn't a specific time frame that was specified within that, but it did contemplate the hearing.
Do you have an answer to Robert's question, Josh, about mediation, I think you've been spoken to earlier this week about it, but
I think
with what you're talking about with the resolution, would there be another resolution proposed for mediation and hold the trial off until we see what happens with that outcome?
I think that, yeah, I think there would be something, some formal council action to sort of memorialize that process and what would be used. And so I think that's just up to the council to determine whether it would choose to do that or not.
So Drew, you're saying that your attorney and Paul Martin agreed that that was a way to go, or, and I wonder if anybody on our end has heard that. JD, have you heard anything from Paul Martin?
So
Okay.
Paul, what I understand, I know, and I read Mr. Martin's letter here. I'm really trying not to get into that specifically because it's got some things in there, but, you know, he talked about we've had 10 days to do whatever and speak to him, but like I said in the last meeting, I wasn't able to meet with my attorney until April 11th, I think Tuesday was, and then I didn't get home till late Tuesday evening from that meeting. Found out Wednesday that there was talk of possible mediation, so I didn't have him spend a lot of time or money getting ready for trial at that point. And I heard on Friday or late Thursday that mediation was looking more of a go-ahead. So then I read this letter, which Robert came out before the two attorneys spoke. So you're right, there's nothing going to be in that letter about that. But today, Kenton Kenny is my attorney, and Paul Martin spoke. And Paul Martin basically said, and my attorney said that both attorneys are agreeable to proceed with mediation, but like I read in my statement, they need direction from council. So basically what Paul was saying is if council directs him that we're open to mediation, and then if I tell my attorney that I'm open to mediation, then we can proceed with that. But
Well, Josh, this may be a question for you. This is just appointing the hearing officer. That's all this ordinance is
Yeah,
doing.
the sole purpose. of
And
the
the
ordinance.
hearing was not gonna be till the end of May. So if the council chooses and it's agreeable from the attorneys, that can be redirected to mediation at that time, right?
It could at that time, yes.
I mean, even before that, I mean,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's just, yeah, it's just a
this is
determination
just
the council has to make.
booking the hearing officer. That's all this is doing, right?
sure. Yeah, you're right, Robert. That's just putting another attorney on the pipeline. So, I mean, that can obviously be done with the new council.
Well, even in mediation, you're gonna have to have an attorney for the,
Yeah, you have a mediating attorney, agreed. I'm just saying,
so,
he asked me about Paul Martin, and Dan, what I was trying to say to you is that Paul Martin told my attorney, he obviously doesn't make that recommendation. Council makes the recommendation to him, but he's open to it if we want to do that, so, yeah.
So, can we table this again? No? It's got to be acted on that.
If it's tabled, then it can be reinitiated.
It would need to be reintroduced again as a new bill or ordinance.
It doesn't die forever, it just stops it at this point, then it's reinitiated at the next meeting or sometime in the future.
And if the question is about the council members coming aboard, being able to vote on these next two ordinances, if we only vote on one, the first reading, then the next council coming on will be able to vote on the second reading.
That's correct.
So this is still the first reading, is that what you're saying?
Yes, because these were both tabled.
Yeah, because it was tabled.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, that was my next question, is can the old council put something into binding effect for the new council? But I guess if it's a first reading, they're not. Huh? Josh, is that how you understand that?
Yeah, even if both readings were conducted tonight, there's nothing that would prevent incoming council from repealing an ordinance or changing.
But there's nothing against the old council binding the new council to some agreement.
No, it's not, I mean, an ordinance would not be passed until the second reading is approved.
Choose your motion. Excuse me,
I move to approve.
to bring it back.
You got a motion to
Oh,
untable.
I have a motion on the floor to bring the ordinance back for a reading.
And this would be for first reading only?
Yes.
And then that second reading would be,
With the new council.
At the
and
next meeting.
all new- Yes,
Okay.
with the whole new council.
okay. I would second that motion.
Did you just second that,
Ms. Lewis, we have a,
Grant?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Because the community has asked you over and over again not to.
Miss, please, do not interfere into their business. We have a motion and a second to bring the ordinance back to the table for a first reading. Ms. Lewis, got to get a roll call on that?
Green,
Abstain?
Ashford,
Yes.
Guthrie, Craig Thompson,
No.
Brant,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Leon Thompson,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
All right, Ms. Lewis, could we have the first reading of this ordinance by title only, please?
Excuse me, this is the
That
second.
is the first reading?
No, this is the second reading.
This is second, okay. Could we have, now it's been removed from table, could we have the second
It
reading?
was tabled at the last meeting.
Right.
But the first, prior to that, the first reading was done at the meeting prior to that one.
Okay. So now we have taken it off the table, put it back in motion, so could we have the second reading by title only, please?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Marshall, Missouri to execute an agreement between the city of Marshall and Engelmeyer and Pisani LLC for the provision of legal services.
All right, gentlemen, this is the second reading of this ordinance, so could I get a,
I thought it was gonna be at the next.
Thought it was at the next meeting.
You have to have a motion, we have to have a
you gotta have a
motion.
motion first from somebody to approve the second reading and the second.
We just approved the first reading, so
No,
the next reading.
you brought you brought a table ordinance back to the floor to be discussed, but when it was tabled, it was up for its second reading, as Ms. Lewis just explained.
The first reading had already been done in March, the second meeting in March.
You gentlemen tabled the second reading at the last meeting, not the first one.
Wasn't what we were understanding.
So if you want the next council to have a reading of this, you'd have to table it again?
Can't table it. It just
Josh,
dies.
is that correct?
I mean, no, if you approve the second reading, the ordinance will be approved. So it will need to be either voted down, or if no action is taken on it, no votes taken, then it would need to be reintroduced anew at the next council meeting if the council wanted to do that.
So if we enter into the agreement and then the hearing is not held, are we out any funds?
The letter of agreement is for hourly services.
Yeah, it's for hourly services, so, you know, the fact of the matter is we have, right now, we have a hearing set, we have, we have we need somebody to do this role. So even if Drew's attorney and Paul Martin mediate, then we won't need the services, so. I
Or he could
think-
be the mediating officer. I mean, I don't know if he does that or not.
So why not wait to approve the hearing officer when we know if we actually need a hearing or not? That's what the community's trying to.
So I would go ahead and recommend, I would motion that we approve this for the second reading.
So
Have a
Josh,
hearing officer.
Second.
Josh, I'll ask you again. Can this council put something binding in tonight that affects the next council? Is it still,
No, I mean, next week, if an ordinance were passed, the process could begin to repeal it, the council.
but tonight, if they vote this through, is it binding on the next council is my question.
Only to the extent that the firm would engage in any work in between now and the time that ordinance is repealed.
Okay.
So if there was some time incurred as a result of that, if there was some time incurred by the law firm in between tonight's meeting and the next meeting, if it were approved tonight, then there'd be some obligation on the part of the city to pay that bill, but it wouldn't bind the future council to continue relying upon that firm's services.
But again, if they choose to go to mediation, that can be changed
That can also be
in
done.
any way, shape, or form. So I second the motion.
Ms. Lewis, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the second reading of this ordinance. Get a roll call, please.
Ashford,
Yes.
Guthrie, Craig Thompson,
No?
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Leon Thompson,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Green.
Abstain.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's not have any more comments from the audience, please, while these gentlemen are working. Ms. Lewis, could we have ordinance number 4 by title only, please?
An ordinance establishing a code of conduct for elected officials of the city of Marshall, Missouri.
Again, gentlemen, this has been tabled by you at the last meeting. In order to bring it back, you will need a motion and a second to bring the ordinance back to the table.
But there was no
No
vote on
readings.
it last time, so this would be the first reading, and
Correct.
the next council would have to read it again, is that correct?
Correct.
Well, I just want to make a few comments. I mean, I'm 100% behind a code of ethics. I think it's important that we do it. I'm very much in favor of a good portion of this. You know, it talks about the chain of command, how things work, where we don't have 8 councilmen running around telling department heads what to do, that it goes through the proper chain. I think that's very important. It talks about harassment. No, we don't want harassment of our employees. But I do get to one section here that I question just a little bit, and that is how you can, that you totally agree with everything the council does, and you can't really say anything against it afterwards. You know, I do agree. I don't know who made the comment last time. That's kind of a freedom of speech issue. I'm not really sure that's good. And these are just my thoughts. The thing I don't want is I don't want, after something is voted, that somebody comes back and says, and starts putting out false information about something that happened to change everybody's mind. If they start doing that, if they put out false information, then I think that is a violation. But just speaking against something that happened, I mean, I've had things that this council voted on the years that I've been on here that I definitely didn't agree with, and I spoke against them. I still do. So that's just my comments on it. I think most of it, almost all of it, I like. I think we definitely need to proceed with it, but I'm a little bit uncomfortable with a couple of the issues in here.
I think as Mr. Cook, Councilman Cook had pointed out at the last meeting, it's basically an ethics guideline, and I sit on several boards, and they almost all have some type of code of conduct, almost all of them. I don't see that there's anything that's gonna render a councilman from doing a job or stand in the way of any business, so I'm all for it, and I would make a motion to bring it back, so that's.
Can we rewrite the part you're talking about, or is this a done deal
We,
here?
well, I mean, we'd have to start over, but I mean, that's just, we could do that. I mean, we can reintroduce a new ordinance of code of conduct.
I don't think it's much that you're talking about. The rest of it I saw looks
Yeah,
varied.
the first couple of pages I totally agreed with, but when I got back on, Rule 3, that was one that concerned me a little bit, and then Policy B, Rule 1. Those were the two that kind of concerned me, so, and Rule 4. So those, you know, I think they can be rewritten just a little bit, and we can, I like it then, but that's just my opinion on it, so.
And when I looked, Dan, there was, started looking at city ordinances from other cities.
Yeah,
Almost every city has a code of conduct.
They do.
So this isn't something that is, I think, outrageous or
no. not at all.
And I do think it's kind of necessary. I think, you know, every company I've ever worked for, they've had a code of conduct, and
Yeah.
and as an elected official, we don't have one in Marshall. We should.
To reiterate the point I tried to make, you know, this is just basic ethics stuff, and I thought the city had a thing, but reading into it, it's just a way to remove someone from office and move forward. And, this is just kind of the ethics, and, you know, this is kind of 5th or 6th grade civics class stuff here. And, I find it odd that so many people who talk about transparency and holding elected officials to a higher standard or to keep them open and honest and transparent seem to be really against having a code of conduct. Basically, we're voting rules for ourselves to keep us in line. And, you know, the first time I read this, I didn't think it was out to get anybody, but a lot of people that spoke the other night seemed to think we were out to get Drew. And if that's the way it comes across, you know, I'd say that's just kind of poor timing, but that's the way it comes. And I don't think anybody's out to get anybody with this, because it's gonna affect us all the same. And it's gonna give even the citizens a chance to come back and say, look, this is what the code of conduct says, and y'all ain't living up to it. So, you know, it just seems kind of duplicitous to be against this, at the same time you're clamoring for more transparency and accountability from us.
And to that, we can't pass an ordinance today that goes back and affects something that happened in the past. That's ex post facto. Cannot do that. We're not passing this to go throw rules at him that happened in the past. We can't do that. That's, you know, so this is moving forward. This is not going into the past to create a law to punish somebody.
And this may be a question for Josh, but I think if this were in place, the only thing that would change from the charges that Mr. Green has alleged upon is that at the end of each charge, it would say, and you violated the code of conduct, right? And it may not even reference it at all.
It may not. I guess the answer would be possibly.
I mean, that,
I'd not looked through the code of conduct to try to determine whether anything matched up with any of the
Right.
allegations and the specifications, but potentially there could be reference to a code of conduct.
right.
Yeah. And,
So,
yeah. Are you done? I didn't want
Yeah.
to. And like Leon said, cities have codes of conduct, and we already have one, actually. We passed it, I don't know, 4 months ago. So I don't know what the other cities have. I would place a decent wager that they don't look like this. But Josh, I asked last meeting, you referenced that you did not write this, that staff members wrote it. Can you be more specific about who wrote this and gave it to you?
I'm not certain. It was passed to me through JD, the city administrator.
Yeah.
And it was something that, at the time that the interference ordinance was discussed, I know that the code of conduct was discussed then, that may be kind of a follow-on to that. And this is something that has come up from time to time for several years. You know, I would say as early as 4 or 5 years ago, there was some discussion about code of conducts and things of that nature, and it sort of never took off and gained any traction. And so,
Well, what we passed in December was really not a code of conduct. It was just an ordinance saying that as council members, we would not interfere in the day-to-day operations with department heads.
I believe the or it said code of conduct on it, but I don't,
No, I think you asked the question.
yeah,
And Josh said this was like the first step in the code of conduct. Was that?
whatever.
yeah, at that time, it was just that was an initial ordinance regarding interference, and
But it's basically just, it was one sentence, I think.
it was a couple, it wasn't very long, but there was a discussion about a code of conduct to follow.
Right.
Oh, I do, Dan, actually, I just thought of something. 2 weeks ago, Charlie, when he was leaving, he had mentioned to me, and I don't know if this ordinance would do this or not, but he said he went and talked to Chief Donnell about something or other. And I responded, well, be careful, Charlie. You pass this code of conduct, you can't do that anymore without getting approval from JD or the mayor. And Charlie kind of smiled. But I think that does this. So does this keep a department head from talking, or I'm sorry, the head of a chair or committee from talking to the department head about something
No,
without going?
I think there's something in here
It
that
says
says
that in
something
there.
about conversations between, and that's more for information gathering. It's not for direction of that department or that department head.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be working with Terry or whoever, and we'd have meetings and have discussions about things, but as far as me saying, well, Terry, you need to get off of what JD told you to do and do what I told you to do, now that is a violation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah,
So, no, it doesn't affect that,
yeah.
in my opinion, no.
Any other discussion, gentlemen?
So tonight, if this is we'd have to bring this back after it's rewrote, correct?
If we
Yeah.
don't,
If you want changes to it, you're gonna have to either let it die on the floor
vote no.
and have it redone, or if you bring it up for a vote, you have to vote it down. So that it can go
Or if
back,
it
it doesn't
passes,
come
it'll-
back, and when it's rewritten again, it'll come back to the new council at a later date for them to consider it
And
again.
if it passes tonight, it goes to the new council for a second reading.
Yeah.
We are sure on that part, right?
And then,
It has never been read, it is still tabled, has not
And-
been brought back to the floor yet.
and if you wanted to make changes later on too, you could write a whole new ordinance that supersedes this one. So
Yeah.
that's how they go.
I mean,
Nobody said it.
I don't know. Just saying.
So was there a motion to untable?
Yeah.
I'll second it.
We do have a motion and a second to untable the ordinance and bring it back to the floor. Could I get a
Guthrie,
roll call, please?
Guthrie, Craig Thompson.
No.
Brandt,
No.
Cook,
No.
Leon Thompson,
Yes.
Perkins. No. Green,
No.
Ashford.
Yes.
I believe the ordinance failed, is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. All right, gentlemen, moving on to ordinance number 5. If Ms. Lewis would read that by title only, please.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the Board of Public Works of Marshall, Missouri to execute a contract with Burns and McDonnell Engineering Company Incorporated.
Jeff, I promise to let you talk this time before I say anything, so go right ahead.
Well, I don't have a lot to say. Good evening. Last summer, Board of Public Works had a flow study done on the sanitary sewer collection system. Based on that study, we have eight different drainages in our system. We identified the 3 worst. This is to go back and have those areas smoke tested. Smoke testing will, those 3 areas are about 200,000 linear feet of sewer main. Burns and McDonnell will provide assistance with the smoke testing, which will be notifying homeowners, pictures, geotagging. We'll get data for all those locations. This is really a start to addressing the I&I on our sanitary sewer system. I think some of you have heard me say before, we sell 500 million gallons of water and we treat 1 billion. So we spend approximately $250,000 a year pumping rainwater. So this will be the kind of the second step after the flow study to start resolving those issues.
Any questions, gentlemen?
I know, Jeff, I know when other cities have done like the smoke studies like this, when people have their drains connected to, and may not know it.
Right.
The smoke comes up through it. How are we gonna address?
So
that
there'll be
situation?
letters sent, well, there'll be a campaign, the group we have that's gonna assist us with this has done this before, so they're gonna kind of bring some of that experience with them. But you're correct, it could be floor drains, it could be a vent out of your wall, it could be foundation drains. So yeah, it'll be we'll have to let the fire department know, because people see smoke, you know, whose phone's gonna ring. So yeah, there's a lot of work, on the front end of this before we even start.
Is this just a certain area of town that's gonna start at, or?
Yeah, it'd be primarily the west side, and I think down by the Town and Country Lake subdivision. Those were so they did 8 basins, and they ranked them so we had rain gauges and flow meters out at the same time. So we ranked them from the worst to the best, and we're starting with the 3 worst as far as amount of rainwater infiltrating the system. So. And like I say, it'll be photographed, geotag, we'll have a map, an inventory. You know, we're gonna have, you know, there's gonna be issues on the private side that people don't know about. We're gonna have to address those and figure out a way to move forward, but we don't know what that, you know, we don't know how many of those we have yet. So this is really kind of inventorying the problems and then grouping those and then finding a path forward.
A motion to approve the ordinance?
Second.
Have
Is
a
that the
motion and a second, Ms. Lewis, for
first
approval.
reading?
Can we get a roll call,
Do
please?
you need this to go to a second reading?
No, we won't do this. This will be about July or August. It works better when the ground is dry and has cracks in it. That way the smoke can make its way to the top. So, that one's fine.
I'm motion to approve the first reading of the ordinance.
Second.
Motion second, Ms. Lewis, roll call, please.
Craig Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Leon Thompson,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Ashford,
Yes.
Guthrie.
All right, our appropriations ordinance, Ms. Lewis, could you get that by title only, please?
An ordinance making the appropriation for the payment of accounts out of the different city funds.
Gentlemen, I'd ask for a motion and a second to take this to a second reading, please.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, Ms. Lewis, roll call, please.
Green,
Yes.
Ashford,
Yes.
Guthrie, Craig Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Leon Thompson,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
An ordinance making the appropriation for the payment of accounts out of the different city funds.
Entertain a motion and a second to approve the second reading, gentlemen.
A motion to approve the second reading?
Second.
Motion and a second, Ms. Lewis, roll call, please.
Perkins,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Ashford,
Yes.
Guthrie, Craig Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Leon Thompson.
Yes.
All right, gentlemen, do we have any unfinished business this evening?
Sorry, I didn't know if you were doing something.
That's later on for the other group.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Just wondered if we had an update with Charlie and remind the citizens to have him in their prayers. And
I don't know if anybody else has a new one. I spoke to him Friday evening, and he's pretty good spirits, but he does have 12 cracked or broken ribs, a broken sternum, and scratches and skin marks, cuts and abrasions from head to toe. Last Tuesday afternoon, he was taking a load of bricks with a small trailer and a small tractor, and the bricks evidently were a little bit heavier than the tractor were, and it jackknifed and overturned on top of Charlie, rolled over him. And he was taken to University Hospital that evening, and right now he's in good spirits, but we don't even know when he's actually getting out of the hospital yet. But he was pretty well beat up by the tractor Tuesday afternoon. Any other business, gentlemen?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, sign die. I need a motion and a second. That's a motion.
second.
I have a motion second. Ms. Lewis, roll call, please.
Perkins,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Ashford,
Yes.
Guthrie, Craig Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Leon Thompson.
Yes.
We are adjourned.
Yep.
See you. You sticking around or you? No, I mean like, going on vacation, you said you're.
I got it. Good enough.
Don't want a photo bomb. Yeah, I'll get it. Going your way.
Do solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Missouri, the provisions of all of the laws of this state affecting the cities of third class and the ordinances of this city, that you will faithfully demean yourself in the office for which you were elected, and that you possess all of the qualifications prescribed by law for this office. Congratulations, please take your seat.
Congratulations. Look forward to working with you guys. Welcome aboard. Sir? Welcome. Okay. Mayor? I'm aboard.
Craig, I got there. I've learned to read backwards. Wrong glasses. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Allen,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Guthrie, Thompson,
Yep.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook.
Here, yes.
Here. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, the first thing is, if you want to come up and speak again, we've got another time for 3 minutes for the audience members. Come on up if you'd like to.
My name is Mike Harlow, and I'm in the third ward. The biggest question in my mind is, under what statutory authority are we trying to have this disciplinary hearing? I don't find anything that applies to it. The only thing I see is called an impeachment proceeding, which is effectively what it sounds like. What we're trying to do is we're trying to impeach Drew Green. But we're not calling it that. We're calling it something entirely different. I know there's a whole state chapter on the impeachment, but I don't understand how we got to that. Under what city authority are we doing the disciplinary action? I mean, is there a specific ordinance that sets that out? I don't know, I'm just asking.
Yeah,
Mr. Taylor?
There is an ordinance governing the discipline. It references the discipline of council members, and then it describes the council as sitting as the court of impeachment. And so that coincides with, there's an underlying statute that coincides with, that the wording is based off of.
Can you use the mic, please? Yeah.
They can't hear you, Josh. I don't know if the
Yeah,
mic, can you
there's
pull that mic towards you?
There's a city ordinance that specifies that the council is responsible for the discipline of its own members, and it describes the council as sitting as a court of impeachment. And that's just based upon, there's an underlying statute that ordinance is based off of. And then that statute provides that the city is responsible for establishing the procedures and processes by which that moves forward then. And so there aren't any other procedures specified that I'm aware of within city ordinances, other than just establishing the council as the disciplinary body for other council members.
Okay. I couldn't find that, but then that wouldn't be unusual. I'm a carpenter. I'm not an attorney or a politician. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
have a question. Misty Allen, Ward 1. So my question is, and it's just because I want to understand, how were we able to vote, accept a vote on something that you had misinformation on after the vote went through on that first reading? You thought it was the first reading, but it was the second reading. How come that went on and went through when it was discussed that it was the first reading several times?
It's your night, Josh.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just want to understand, because it was misinformation.
The minutes indicated that I guess the first reading had been conducted already. And so when it was untabled, then the only action left for the council to take if it was a second reading was to either approve it or not at that point.
Okay.
In all fairness, it was discussed just before the vote that it was a second reading. So I think everybody was clear at that point.
Yeah, it was a misunderstanding, I think, for a little bit, but then once that was all brought out and.
Done, okay.
Then it was, yeah.
Just wanted to understand.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Crystal Nomesi, 601 Gordon Street. I would like to welcome the new mayor and council. Thank you so much for serving. And the first question that I have is, can we please look into our city administrator not living here and why it's acceptable for him to be our city administrator if he does not live here? And possibly getting out of that contract that was approved for him recently. And also, please do whatever you can to maybe repeal the two things that the community just asked the old council not to vote on, and then they went ahead and voted on it anyway. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, we're going to move on. Every year we have a grievance board election, and we have members from the council and members from the employees. And each year I think it's 2 from the council, is that correct, Julie?
That's correct.
She's going to keep me in line for a while, maybe for a long while. At any rate, so we need nominations from the council members for 2 grievance board members. Dan, you've been on it before. How busy is that?
Oh, it's just a as-needed type situation where we have issues. But when you have a grievance that's called up, then you deal with it. It's been quite a while since we've had one, so.
If one of the new members wants to, you think they
Right.
can handle it just fine without too much background?
Yeah.
Okay, open for nominations. 2 nominations, please.
Dan, do you want to be on it again?
I don't, that's fine with me, yeah.
Well, I would nominate Dan Brandt then.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Another person?
Anybody else want to learn from Dan? All right.
Have a nomination for Phil?
Nominate Phil Perkins.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Perkins,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Guthrie, Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Great. Now we're kind of other council business. I'll have some things to say, but first thing really is to nominate a mayor pro tem. Somebody would cover if I was absent, and so I'm going to open the floor for nominations. Anybody is welcome to make a nomination in second, and we'll vote on it.
I'll nominate Dan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further nominations? Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Green,
Yes.
Swisher,
Yes.
Guthrie, Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
I've got a few things that I talked about when I was running I'd like to touch on. The first is we're going to have a mayor's forum here on these chambers, June 22nd from 4 to 6. It'll just be me. Please don't make me wear Kevlar or anything like that. We'll just have a discussion. I'll be taking notes. There'll be no actions taken, but this will be a chance for you to come talk with me about whatever you'd like to talk about. There won't be any minutes or anything like that. So we'll bring that up a couple times. I think Ms. Lewis is going to try to get it on the radio and in the newspaper as well. So we'll talk about that in the future, but that is June 22nd from 4 to 6 right here. The railroad, been touched on a couple of times, and there is some movement there. But it's been tough for people to get information, and it sometimes inundates the clerk's office. So I'm working with Anne Marie, and we're going to talk about opening up a separate link on the city website where you can go download all the information on the railroad and the crossings. And then we'll have a good template if something else like that were to come up, where you can go and get all the paperwork you want, download it to yourself. If you don't have a computer or a way to download it, you can still obviously talk to the clerk's office about that. So the railroad, we're going to work on, and you'll know what's going on as we know. The code of conduct is dead, right, Josh, as it was? It's that ordinance, so we don't need to discuss that. I did talk to Josh about drawing up an ordinance regarding second readings the same night as first readings. Now, there are times that needs to be done. Appropriations, we've got a budget, we need to pay our people. We could have emergencies, there could be a contract with a deadline that we have to discuss. I'd like everything else to be at least 2 weeks from the first reading so that council has time to digest it and citizens have time to digest it, and we can discuss the pros and cons. So, but there are some state regulations that Josh has to look at. So you're going to draw something up for us to look at in the near future, correct? Thank you. All right, here's the fun one. We're going to talk about mediation. I think it's an absolute necessity. I don't care if it's a disciplinary action or if it's an impeachment or if it's something else. Mediation's always preferable to any kind of litigation. Now, the way I understand it, when we hired the firm tonight, nothing happens if we don't use them. So we'll just let that pass for now, and if we have to deal with it later, we will. But for right now, I would like the council's approval to have a mediation, and we've got Paul Martin and your attorney, what's his last name?
Kenny.
Kenny. Mr. Martin and Kenny can come up with something. If they can't,
Kenton Kenny. I get confused. Kenton Kenny is his name.
Kenton Kenny. Yeah. Okay. Okay, but anyway, if those two can come to an agreement by May 1st, we might have to have a special meeting to take care of the contract for the mediator. If not, by May 1st, if they haven't come to an agreement, then we're going to talk again, and maybe I'll have to come up with a mediator, or somebody will. So I would like a motion and a second to pursue a mediation, as we stated.
Motion.
Second.
Second. Clerk call the, oh, any other discussion? Further discussion? Clerk call the roll, please.
Swisher,
Yes.
Guthrie, Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes.
Abstain.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay. Okay, there's another thing we've been discussing. Mondays are kind of wild days. The clerk's been gone for the weekend. Sometimes we have 3-day weekends. I would like the council to consider, and we'll talk about it May 1st, moving our council meetings to Tuesday nights so that 3-day weekends won't interfere with things. Julie can get her work done. We can put out fires before they become a problem. So we'll just talk about that next time. Let's see. Oh, I did have one little item of interest. As you all know, we borrowed money from MMU to demolish some buildings. And it hadn't been really clear how much we're paying them back. My goal was to have them paid back by the end of my 4 years, and it looks like we're on track for that. They're paying about $23,000 a month now, and we're down from a balance of over $1.7 million to $1.344 million and some cents. So hopefully, if that continues, we will have that paid off. And I don't foresee anybody with me going back to talk to them about another loan. So hopefully that's the end of that. Okay. Anything from the council otherwise? Gentlemen? Good. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Yes.
moved.
Second.
Clerk call the roll.
Guthrie, Thompson,
Yes.
Brandt,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Perkins,
Yes.
Green,
Yes.
Swisher.
Yes.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Yes. And yes, I am using an old typewriter. I wanted to write on it because I can write pretty, but I thought, no, I better have it print together. Nope, those are.
So,